I had a conversation with Barry Mussel a couple weeks ago. He's a guy that wrote the Roof Framers Bible. He's a guy my age who, unlike my experience of being a solo flyer or just a carpenter, ended up as a key man for a corporation managing 70 framing crews in 5 states building 1,000 houses a year. So obviously we had different construction experience, but obviously we speak the same language. And one of the things that I think you're going to be interested in that I learned from him was 30 years ago, 20% of the houses that were built in the United States were built by corporations and 80% were built by small builders. Today it's reversed. 80% are built by corporations, 20% are built by small builders. So obviously the calculation has changed. And if you're trying to figure out whether to sell your time one day at a time, or to get in a position where you are running a payroll and capitalizing on the efforts of other people, providing good jobs, doing good work, you need to think about whether there's a middle ground, whether you should think about becoming a key man inside a corporation, providing the housing and building the structures that people need to live in America. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I know that I did. So one of the things that I have continued to marvel at as we've been playing with this YouTube channel now for almost 8 years, actually, is the people that come into the people I meet. And there's something about the channel that seems to self-select, so that the people I meet through the channel and through the Essential Craftsman Academy, probably, if I would have met them in some other way in my life, we would have become friends, or at least acquaintances. And one of those guys is here with me today. I've got Barry Mussel right here in the shop. Barry, thanks for making a long trip from Georgia.
Yeah.
Man, it's good. It was kind of stunning when you reached out. It was through the Essential Craftsman Academy, wasn't it? You've been a member of that?
Well, I was, but before I watched videos for several years, just off and on, not until I actually started trying to do them myself. I really honed down and watched a lot of your stuff.
Yeah, Nate figured out a good recipe, for sure. Mm-hmm. But Barry and I have a similar life story to a point, because he took construction into the next level. I remained kind of a solo operator, making things, a wide variety of things, and getting satisfaction in that, and making most of a living. And he ended up cutting a much wider swath back in the American Southeast. But while I've got him here, one of the things that I want to dive down on is the question about how a young guy, maybe like you, if you're thinking about going into business as a carpenter or a contractor, how do you make the jump from working with your hands and making a living most of the time to running a crew, hiring a crew, marketing, organizing, becoming a businessman instead of a carpenter? Now, Barry, you and I have visited enough for me to learn that you have done both those things. That you started out, you graduated from high school at age 16 as a valedictorian in the class. Well, that says something about your ability to do schoolwork. And then you stepped straight into construction because you got 6 brothers?
6 brothers.
And all but 2 have been in construction?
That's right.
Wow. Okay. And so right out of high school, you missed your graduation practice because your brother needed you on the job. Is that right?
Well, I'd already committed to the job, so this graduation practice got in the way.
And first things first. Right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, you ended up driving the boat there in the framing that you guys began to specialize in. Mm-hmm. Most of your employees, most of the people on your crew were brothers, or did you hire besides that?
No, we had other people hired. It's like anything in a construction business. People come and people go, and different ones, the brothers worked for me at one time or other, but then we hired others as well.
Okay. So obviously, so Barry also wrote a book. We're going to talk about that, the Roof Framers Bible, and it's staggering. It's its own noteworthy accomplishment. So there you were, manipulating numbers and doing the layout, and I assume cutting the roofs. That probably you gravitated to cutting on the ground and sending the pieces up, and they fit, or they didn't, but most of the time they fit. How did you step across that divide from being accomplished with your hands to beginning to think about tying up enough work and hiring enough people to do it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. We were small time, contractors. We were framing contractors. I never ran multiple crews.
One crew.
Okay. Absolutely committed. I would call myself a control freak, but pretty close.
Close to it.
So I was going absolutely, no question, it's going to deliver quality. So I was looking at everything that went down, and two, I have found, from tracking your man hours, you always make more money to the bottom line with fewer people. You can get a big bunch of people on a job, and it just doesn't work out.
Okay, so I am so glad to hear you say that, because for a long time I have believed an Army Corps of Engineers statistic that says that you lose 20% in efficiency every time you double your crew size. I've seen that borne out time after time, and it's so validating to hear you say it. So keep going.
Yeah, so I mean, when you were doing volume framing, I mean, we were framing, we framed some houses. I'm talking like 2,200 square feet. In the beginning, we were more basic houses. 2,200 square foot house with a 2-car garage. That was heated footage, plus 2-car garage. We built it in 4 days.
That's
frame it in 4 days.
Sure.
Just from foundation to felt on the roof in 4 days.
Okay.
Now, others, maybe 5 or 6 days. So, we're popping through them pretty good.
Sure.
And
with 4 guys, 5 guys?
4 to 5 guys, it varies. Sometimes 6, but rarely. So I had the man hours. Of course, I was 18. We ran everywhere we went.
Yeah.
We hustled.
You trotted back to the pile of studs, yeah.
And amazingly, too, you think back, we were doing truss roof on a slab for 70 cents a square foot.
Wow. Complete.
Just from the foundation to felt on the roof, 70 cents a square foot.
Labor and material? Labor
No,
only?
no, just labor on. It was all labor on.
Yeah,
contracts
okay, thank
these
you.
Guys.
I was thinking, man, Southern Yellow Pine must be cheap.
And if it was a stick-built cut roof on a wood floor, it was a whole $1 a square foot.
$1 a foot, wow.
And, that sounds ridiculously cheap. But we were making good money for that time.
Yes.
But we were hustling like crazy.
And what years were these?
That would have been 79 through 86 or something like that.
Okay.
When we were framing.
So you got a taste then of evaluating young guys and hiring them and trying to train them. Let's keep drilling down on this idea of the pain associated with going from just doing the work with your hands and that sort of pain to finding and training and being responsible for the work that people produce. The question is, what did you identify as a way to find talent? Was it just the guys that walked on, you gave them a shot, or word of mouth, or how did you find the talent?
Well, it was mostly friends and acquaintances, frankly. We weren't running a big crew.
Yeah.
And so it was just people that we knew that wanted to work, and we were able to train them up gradually. It's kind of funny, just a side note quickly. One of the guys had joined the Marines, so he went off to boot camp. Of course, when he came back, he said, boot camp wasn't too bad after working for you. It was a walk in the park. But he went to the Marine Corps, so we were short-handed, and our jobs were switching over at the time, and so we weren't going to frame but one more house. And I didn't really want to bring on a lot of crew, but 2 guys walked up. Hey, you looking for some help? I said, nah, we're going out of the framing business. I said, well, surely you need some help. I said, well, okay, if you guys understand it, just for 1 week.
Now that you mention it, yeah.
Okay, we'll hire you. Well, we worked a little while, and they said, are you guys going to take a break? I said, well, you need some water, get some water, And they, well, you going to take a break? I said, well, you can sit down if you need to. We got to lunch. They left. They never come back. They never came back for their money.
But they left smarter. They left smarter, Barry. They knew what it was like to run.
They said, we don't want to work for that guy.
Okay, but later, and we'll talk about this some more, but you ended up working for a big outfit running 70 crews in 5 states.
Right.
So now you had the problem of finding labor.
Right.
Okay? So did you have a method? So if you guys are thinking about going into business, if you're dreaming of becoming big, you got to have to figure out some way to find the labor that you need. What did you figure out when you were running all those crews across all that real estate? How did you find them?
Well, there's no magic formula.
No magic formula.
But I will say this, and this is something that, particularly in more recent times, you got labor brokers, particularly, with the Latino wave. I'm not sure about up here in Oregon.
Oh, there is, yeah.
But the Latino wave that came in has practically completely taken over frame carpentry.
Yes.
But even before then, you started getting a lot of labor brokers. And some of that's driven by insurance challenges, Sure. I mean, not everybody can get the insurance. So, a guy gets the insurance, he gets the financial wherewithal, and then they're sharecroppers for him. They're working piecework. Yeah. But back then, the insurance wasn't as big a challenge. But I hated to deal with labor brokers.
Yeah.
Because I want a personal relationship with a guy. I want him to understand what I'm looking for, and that he's making a personal commitment to me for quality and speed and communication. And the labor broker, you talk to the broker, it's just in
just
one
send
ear
you a
out
body.
the other. You just got a bunch of bodies.
Yeah.
They weren't briefed, they weren't schooled at all, and it never worked out.
And so what I'm hearing there is that, as one of the dynamics is that when you have control over the people that are being hired and can monitor how they produce their work, the back end of your job is less complicated because it works better. And in a situation where you have no little control and have to do the best with what you get, there's more pickup, more cleanup, more negotiation on the back.
Most of the time, the nature of a framing crew, that it's kind of an independent unit, you know?
Yep.
I mean, it's got its own hierarchies, people know what they're doing. Where it gets muddled up is when they're sharecropping from a labor broker.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and two, they're paying a percentage to that guy. He's creaming the money off the top. And I mean, there's not a lot of extra money if you're in production framing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I wanted to cut those guys out.
Yep.
My goal is two, and I was very clear with these guys. This is two goals that I've got, because I look at it different than my employer. Obviously, my employer wanted a lot of houses and he wanted them well done.
You were working for a big builder and you were running the framing.
Right. So my goals, and I was very upfront, I would tell these crews, my goal is quality and you making money.
Yeah.
You know, so many of these big companies, they get myopic about, you know, production. Quality falls away, and they hammer people mercilessly, and they try to bring the prices down. And I was constantly advocating for the framers to the management of this big builder, you know. I said, look, if you want quality, you want good customer service scores, and a smooth operation, because it was penny wise, pound foolish.
There you go.
You know,
there you go. Yeah.
to try to cut it so to the bone that you cannot consistently field quality framers.
So managing all those people and being responsible for getting the best productivity out of them that you can, which also includes keeping somebody that's trained, so they've got to have some satisfaction in their job. What rules, what behaviors did you learn over all those decades of managing, I'm going to say thousands of men? Now maybe that's an overstatement.
No, that's true.
Okay. What do the guys that are thinking about managing crews need to know about the best way to get the best work out of the best men?
Well, it's consistency and communication. Number one, especially with a new framer, it was a whole different level of thing. After you've had a little history with them, they know you, you know them. But we had a new framer orientation checklist. They came on our job. We've got all the information that they need to know. Nothing is more painful than miscommunication of rough openings. You got a brand new framer. He's working on piecework prices. If he has a bad outing the first time, he's out of there.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to develop a new crew, he had to make money on the first house. Now, he'd make a lot more money, hopefully, on the second, the third, and the fourth.
Yeah.
But if he didn't make money on the first house, I'd lost him. And all my effort in him was lost.
Yep.
So it's clear communication. So we had a checklist.
1 second. So for those of you who are watching this who don't understand the critical nature of a rough opening, what Barry's talking about is if you've got a framer banging together walls and he confuses the height and the width on the windows. The width on windows is always given first and the height is given second. And if he gets those rough openings wrong, there's a ton of tear out that somebody has to do, right?
Right. Well, and then window manufacturers.
Yeah.
We could, especially like in COVID, you couldn't get windows.
Yeah.
Well, every manufacturer oftentimes, ridiculously, have different rough openings.
Different rough openings for the same call out.
So, you know, clear communication and making sure, okay, who's supplying the windows on this house? What is their rough opening? Is that information given to the framer?
Yeah.
Because nothing is more painful to have to go back and reframe a bunch of openings.
Oh, man.
So that's one example, but we had I think it was 38 items on our new framer
On
checklist.
the checklist orientation.
That we personally made sure that they were given this information. It was handed to them in written form. And I went over their plans with them. We sat down. And
New frame.
First time out. You know, every plan set is a little different. Architect's going to draw it a little different.
And
the
you
organization
mark
of their
it
plan
up for them
set,
with
we're
them?
marking it up.
Color coded and stuff? Yep.
We didn't do a whole lot of color coding, but I used a red pen.
There you go.
So we flip them through it and make sure they understand it. And two, it wasn't just that. It was an opportunity for me to evaluate the man.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I got into it and we're going through there and explaining these parts and pieces, there's sometimes I said, you know what, we're not a fit.
Yeah, you could just tell by his questions and his answers
Yeah.
and what he was focusing his attention on that he just didn't know.
Yeah. And I mean, I wanted to give young guys a chance.
Yeah.
But many times I say, you know what, we build a lot of complicated houses, and I want to give you a try, but I can't do it here.
Yeah.
How about this neighborhood over here? We're doing townhomes.
There you go.
We're doing something simpler.
There you go.
We'll try to let you cut your teeth on that.
Now you mentioned the power of a compliment for a working man.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. I was dead set for quality, and I was going to have quality. And if I didn't, it was going to be painful. So I wanted them to have good expectations up front. So I had really good communications. But human nature is what human nature is. See, I was the new guy on the block when I first started. These crews had already been running.
They'd been working for this outfit without Barry Muscle, and here he comes.
And I'm telling you, there was a period there that I thought, man, they're going to slash my tires. But when they did make a mistake, and they were going to fix it, I would jump in there and help them.
There you go.
And
did you hear that? Did you hear that? That the key to running a crew is being willing to dig in there with your own hands, especially at a mistake time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I would make a frame walk list, and make sure all these items, and they had to sign them off, and they were long. I wrote 3 and 4 and 5 page lists sometimes. But then I learned that not only verbally but written. They had a nice one here. What does that say?
It says, "Great house. You've got the hang of it. Thanks." Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Here's another one. 2 items. I appreciate your hard work.
2 items on their punch list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, a 1-item list. Fantastic house. Thanks. And this is one of my Latino guys. Magnifico. 3 items.
Did you miss the freedom of working just on your own crew, with your own hands, with your brothers, with 2 or 3 guys, one house at a time? Did you look back and say that it may not have been a good trade to trade all that freedom for more money and more job security? How does that balance work? How did it work for you? Because for me, I became such a freedom junkie and a variety junkie. I had to do so many different things that I gave up a lot of earning potential out of fear and desire for freedom. How would you tell a young man to parse that choice? Because he's going to come to that choice, right?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt. And
Talk
yeah,
about that.
I'd always been self-employed.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Other than just, a very short while when I got out of high school. And I was accustomed to that. What made it possible for me, number one, it was a huge job. And number 2, it wasn't in an office chair. I was driving on average 110 miles a day, hitting all these job sites. And 2, I already had a pre-existing relationship with the guys that hired me and that trusted me, and they gave me a lot of latitude.
So you had some freedom.
I had a lot of freedom, and if they started bumping up against me, not giving me freedom, I'd make noise until they did, because I'd done this small gig work, and we've been doing it a long time. We framed a lot of great houses, and we made good money, and we built custom homes too, but we just didn't have the capital,
There's the problem.
We didn't have the capital.
So did you hear that? If you don't have the capital to do this, you are setting yourself up for a long, painful ordeal that may or may not involve ever making any money. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a criteria. We all think we can compensate for a lack of capital with an overabundance of testosterone. It's a bad trade. Is that about right?
That's it.
Okay.
But while I was doing my small-time thing, and again, we were framing for these big outfits, and so we were observing how they ran their business. And of course, I was armchair quarterbacking,
Sure.
what they were doing. I thought, man, if I had the money.
If I had the money. Yeah.
I could run this thing. So the reason, a big component of why I agreed to do it, was it was time to put up or shut up. I'd spent all these years carping about how it could be done, and I was going to show it could.
Okay.
And I was going to show how to run that kind of volume operation.
And you figured it out?
Largely.
Largely.
I mean, it's not perfect.
No.
You can't control everybody exactly the way you want.
Darn it. That's the other takeaway. You can't control everybody exactly the way you want. We're doing good if we can control ourselves. So Barry, we've got more things to talk about on this day. I mean, you're here from Georgia. I don't have you very long. But we're going to draw this part of the conversation to a close and just remind you guys that are sick of just working with your hands and seeing the guys that are running the crews, it looks like they're making the big money. Yeah, sometimes they are. But it's not just the little guys that go broke, right? When you have crews, you also have an opportunity to leverage yourself into financial calamities that nobody can work themselves out of. So weigh the costs and the benefits carefully. Figure out as carefully as you can how much freedom is important to you and how much responsibility for other people's mistakes and successes you're willing to take. And then make the jump if you want. And if you don't want to, then just content yourself with doing a fine job, exceeding the expectations of your clients, building a pool of friends that you've done work for, and at the end of the day, look back and say, yep, I did a good job and I was paid, and I think I have no regrets. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman. Keep up the good work.